communities. To apply, there's no complicated forms, nor do you have to be a registered charity. Just grab your phone, send us a 60-second video explaining your good cause and the difference having extra funding would make to your project. Visit thecommunitylottery.com. Hit the play button and sign up for either 13 weekly draws or by direct debit for just £4.35 that gives you 4 weekly draws. You could have the chance of winning £25,000. The aim of the Community Lottery is to create an additional source of funding that will enable good causes to undertake innovative projects that matter. If you're in, the communities win.
Good evening, my name is Rose Blaze and this is a live book show. Welcome and good evening. This evening we have a distinguished guest, Kwame M.A. McPherson, and his book, My Date with Depression. Welcome, Kwame.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you here on the show.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for, I'm glad to be here, you know.
It's wonderful to have you here.
Yes.
So ideally, we usually start the show, as is tradition, that we start by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Man. Oh, wow. I'll tell you about myself. Well, yeah. I'm an entrepreneur, which means I'm an author and entrepreneur.
Right.
I'm a mentor, a book coach. I'm a lifelong trainer.
Okay.
What else am I? I'm also a football referee. I'm a poet.
Wow.
So those are who I am in that regard.
The list is extensive.
It's very extensive. I might as well try and say what is it I don't do.
Right.
You know, but so that's who I am. So yeah, I'm a storyteller. I'm a griot. I love telling stories, whether that's through poetry, through prose. I write various genres, non-fiction, fiction. I enjoy telling, like I said, I love stories. I love seeing stories. My purpose in life is to tell stories and to help other people tell their stories.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. So you're a bit of a ghostwriter as well.
I am.
Yes.
I am. But like I said, I also have a number of mentees that I help. I do book coaching, which enables other people to tell their stories in their own unique voice, you know? So
right.
that's what I do. That's who I am.
Excellent, excellent.
And that's just about writing. I ain't going to talk about anything else.
Well, we're going to talk about what next later on in the show. We're going to ask him to tell us more about it. So right now, tell us why My Date with Depression. Why the title? Love the title.
You know, I'll give you a backstory for you, a story about a book. I wrote a book back in 2015.
Right.
And I don't know, I had a particular experiences, and I thought, and I had never written anything about myself. And everything I've written have been creative. It's stories that I have snippets of something else or someone else's story. There's only one other story that I've written about myself, and that's in one of my short story books. And that was about a particular episode I witnessed when I was young.
Okay. And
funny enough, I think I won an award for that. That's the particular story. And so, but I'd never written anything in terms of my experiences or my life experiences. So I said, you know what, I'm going to write this book. And yeah, I put pen to paper and I started to a lot of reflection, you know, a lot of looking back, a lot of who I was in that particular time in that space. And then it came about 2015, but then I lost the manuscript.
Yes, I read that.
Yeah, I lost the manuscript. It was on a USB. The USB got corrupted. All my
Can you
laptops.
imagine?
Yeah, all my laptops were dead. I couldn't reach. As a matter of fact, the number of manuscripts that I had written, stories that I had written before, I'd lost all of them. You're talking about probably 100, 200
Wow.
stories, short stories and stuff I had lost. I completely lost. And it was so happened that it's in 2018 that I was looking at on Facebook, because I had sent the manuscript to a friend of mine, a male friend of mine, Trey Young, and Facebook, you can actually see what you sent to someone as an attachment right now when they updated it. And I was looking at the direct messaging, and I said, oh, there's an attachment. There's the book. So I was able to download it,
Yes.
and then I was able to go over it again.
Review it.
Review it, look at the content.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was in 2018, late 2018, and I think it was November 2018 that I actually, the cover just came. When you're inspired as a creative, there's inspirations that will come. It come anytime, and it so happened that I don't remember what I was doing. Whether was meditating or after a session of just having some deep reflection, that the title came.
Yeah.
I said, hey, I did with depression.
My
I did a number of titles,
Yeah.
and that's the one that stuck. You know what I mean? Because go on a date, and.
Extended date.
Exactly. You go on a date with someone. So everyone can then associate themselves and go on a date, right? And this is my particular date with depression in that regard. And I remember doing the cover alone, because I was still working on the manuscript. And I remember I said, let me push out the cover and see what the response is like. The best response I had was on LinkedIn, and that made me realize that I was onto something. And LinkedIn is not known. LinkedIn is a professional site.
Yes, it is.
It's mainly for the business owners or senior management, that kind of
professionals. Yeah.
Professionals, yeah. And when I saw over 300 responses in terms of views, I said, okay.
What's this date about?
Yeah, I said, all right.
Curiosity.
I said, and that's when I said, all right, now
That's
the
title.
Exactly, and I'm going to push it out. And that's exactly what I did. I had a number of covers, actually, but this one was the one that jumped off for a number of people.
Yeah.
And
Lovely picture of you, by the way.
Thank you. Funny enough, I did some modeling, but that's okay. That's okay. Yeah.
That's another show.
That's another show. And I pushed it out, and then the momentum has just been crazy. And I had a book launch this year.
Oh, okay.
Even though the book has been out for over a year, I had a book launch this year. Because I was away in Jamaica for most of 2018. Came back last year, and I said, all right, I got a book now. Let me just and as soon as I came back to the UK, hit the ground, and that was it. It's like everywhere when people wanted to know, people had men contacted me and had interviews and been on stage and forums, you name it, I've been there.
Wonderful.
And then the momentum has built for this year because of what we're going through.
Yes,
you know what I mean?
It's just compounded the situation.
Exactly, and it's almost like the book has been written for this time.
For men.
So it has been written for this time, and it's practically, it's on the verge of exploding, I would say. Yeah.
I really enjoyed the book. Okay. I really, really enjoyed reading the book. It was so sort of practical, down to earth. You could identify with it, and then you started coming out with these tools and checklists and such like, which again, so practical. It even got me thinking, aspects of separation and loss for me. I could identify with what was being asked of me. And I even sat there thinking, so what's my view about that? I find myself becoming very reflective about stuff in my own life. So thank you so much for your tool book. Oh. I see it as a tool book and a manual for help, self-help.
Yes.
So that was really, really great. You kind of start the book talking about men and talking about men, for example, being seen as macho, men not necessarily acknowledging us growing in a culture that doesn't encourage you to view men as weak.
Yes. So one of the things that, especially for those of us who come from the Caribbean, in particular, I mean, probably Africa too, but I can only talk about African Caribbean men, is that we come from a culture whereby it's not seen to be vulnerable. We can't afford to be seen to be vulnerable. Right. And I put a historical context to that, which we can go into later on. Yeah. But I think that, and then you have the societal layers that come up on top. Men are supposed to cry. Right. Men are going to be macho, and all that kind of stuff. Men are going to be seen to be quote unquote men. Right. And so it has been difficult for us in that regard to to be emotive, to be vulnerable, to be open.
Yes.
And bearing in mind the pressures that we do face and we're under, whether we're in the West or within the Caribbean,
Yeah.
then that is a compounded even more. So yeah, it is hard, and I guess, you know, as funny enough though, what I will say is that times seem to be changing in terms of men are now speaking up more.
Yes, they are.
A lot of black men, we want to call it that, African Caribbean men, and we are talking more.
Yes.
And I guess as a particular generation, because the generation before us, you know, what I mean, they came from a particular environment, you know, which was harsh.
Yeah.
And, you know, under a colonial way of mentality and education and so on and so forth. And
Yes.
and then if you take a step further back, you're talking about slavery and all those things that came through.
Yes.
But now, with more self-awareness and the ability to understand that it's okay to be open and emotive and have emotion, I think more of us are starting to do that and embrace it. And so more and more, I can see where we are starting to talk.
Yes, definitely. So do you think in some aspects men culturally are set up to fail in terms of expressing their emotions and being open as would needs be if they're feeling?
Yeah, I don't know. It depends on how you would classify failure in that regard. Because, so for example, you can be successful at being whatever it is.
Right.
But then there's an aspect where you do fail, like you said. So you may have like I said, I don't know, you're probably out there doing your thing, you know, you're working a high-powered job or, you know what I mean, you're a sports personality or whatever it is. But then there's an aspect which is hidden, which is not, and probably you could classify that as a failure in that regard. I think
they're just not happy but or not fulfilled in some way.
Yeah, and again, I tend not to use the word failure personally because I think that everything has its place.
Right,
but I think that for a lot of men who have, and that's what happens, you see, because we're achievers, black men in particular, and I'm talking about, I can't talk about anyone else, you know what I mean? We're achievers, we want to attain, we want to be successful, so we do that, and we do it very well, you know, but then like I said, but even for striving for that kind of success, we do have aspects of us which are successful, if that makes sense.
Right,
you know what I mean?
okay.
And that is, you know what I mean, what comes underneath. So it's almost like you can create something but doesn't have any substance. You know, so then how do you create to have the substance which can enable you to be more successful?
Yes.
You know, than what you actually are, who you are in that regard. And that is gonna deal with a lot of stuff, because we do carry a lot of stuff.
So what is it, do you think, in terms of our, modern day society or just society, that is enabling men to come forward and speak out now?
I think, like I said, I think there's more and more that we're now more aware. We're now more aware in terms of stories. Like I said, the stories that we're hearing. You know, we're now more aware. Especially, what I would say is that as bad as the West is, because I have around politics and my opinions about that. There's aspects of the West where we can learn. You know, the things that happen that we can learn, which we can then translate back to wherever we come from, whether it's to Africa or from the Caribbean. And there's aspects of that. So, for example, there are things in place, there are things that we see that happens in society that we say, okay, that makes sense in terms of communication, commitment, consideration, compassion, those kind of things. And then we can put that with who we are as men in that regard. I think so. There's a lot more of that happening, and there's a lot more of men in terms of profile men who are and whether they're actors. And a lot of times we take a lot of what we see from the Denzel Washingtons, for example.
Right.
You know what I mean, or the Barack Obamas. We see those type of men,
powerful
men,
yes,
relatable men,
yes,
being vulnerable, being emotive, going up front and talking about particular things.
Yes.
So that's that. Yeah. So that is, I think, is where a lot of initiative comes from. Where men see that, and the more of us seeing that and
having
translating it and doing it for ourselves, then the more and more we be able to come to a place where we can talk about.
Examples are so important, Kwame, so important.
So important.
So let's talk about examples. Let's talk about the signs of depression.
All right.
In your book, you start by talking about tiredness, having a lack of energy.
Yeah.
You spoke about sadness.
Yeah.
And, in this time of COVID, it's such a difficult time.
Yes, it is.
Sadness is something that comes verbatim now. Altered sleep patterns, low libido, poor appetite and weight loss.
Yes.
I personally have seen some of that. Irritability, outbursts of sudden anger, risk-taking, aggression, increased alcohol, drugs and self-medicating, which is a form of escapism, I suppose you can look at it. And one thing you wrote in the book was depression interpreted as a sign of failure. Some people may perceive it that way. So looking now at the signs of depression, and I think this is so apt in terms of your description, and I'm hoping that there are members of the audience out there today, the listeners, who can identify with some of those and could say, well, actually, this is happening to me. Does this mean, could this be a way of me knowing that something may be up, that I may need help? So thank you for that, Kwame. It was great.
And to elaborate a bit about that is,
yes,
especially now,
yes,
like I said, with the COVID and lockdown that was taking place, the anxiety that has caused, men, for example, like I said, men want to be the provider, right? Majority of the time.
That's the expectation as well.
That's it, exactly. And with redundancies and furlough and all these things taking place, and not even certain if you're going to have a job tomorrow, that would push someone into a place of
state of insecurity, isn't
totally,
it? And just feeling displaced somehow.
Exactly. And then there doesn't seem to be an answer. There doesn't seem to be a light at the end of the tunnel. That tunnel will continue in the darkness as it is, right?
Yes.
So those angst that you've described are totally what I think is happening now. I don't think we've seen the ramifications of it yet.
No.
Until later on.
I agree.
And well, we see it being internalized in homes in terms of the rise in domestic violence. Those kind of things are signs that something is not right.
Inability to cope, isn't it?
Exactly. And so
being able to manage and regulate behaviours
so
now becoming less and less.
That's right. So like I said, so everything is compounding on someone in such a way that there'll be an environment and there's no answer to, and so you internalize all that stuff. And men, we tend to. And the only way we can lash out, we lash out. So that's so we haven't seen, like I said, the extent of the damage that this period has caused just yet. Mental ill health, I think right now globally
is on the rise, isn't it?
It's on the rise.
And you speak as well in the book about the rate of suicide increasing. Which is such a truth as well.
It is, and like I said, we have not seen the results of this thing yet. I don't think until probably about 6 months down the line to a year when actually
And again, you then went on to talk about the causes of depression, which you've already touched on.
Exactly.
Okay. So you spoke about job losses, childhood trauma, financial woes. Can anybody identify? Failed relationships. It's a big one, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Death of loved ones. Personally, I can identify with that one. Hereditary, relationship difficulties, separation and divorce, stressful jobs and lack of support at work and at home, not being promoted above one's own capabilities, and becoming a new father. Well, that's a biggie as well. And there's enough time to create babies at this time, with furlough and everything else.
I'll tell you,
But again, these kind of things, and a lot of people, because they're so desperately kind of preoccupied with trying to find work, with trying to maintain that stability, they forget actually what is causing us, what's happening to us and why is this happening? So they're not stopping to think about not just the symptoms, but the causes.
That's right.
Because they're so preoccupied trying to stabilize.
Exactly. I think.
So you've mentioned it.
Yeah, and you see, because I think this period has shown how busy we have been.
Oh.
You know what I mean? And we've been so busy that we don't know the essence of ourselves or the essence of someone else. So you find that because we're not busy anymore, we're now in a place or a space where we have to question. We don't know what to do. Basically, we just don't, because we have never been this still. You know what I mean? We literally had moved from one space at one time, a paradigm shift of busyness into a state of silence.
A state of silence and nothingness. I mean, with all that the government are imposing now, with, for example, being shut down at home. You know,
exactly.
movement is being restricted.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Injections are on the, you
So-
need to have these things.
Yeah.
People are just feeling more and more, like you spoke about this imploding effect.
Yeah.
You know, people don't have an opportunity to express themselves or to maintain control of their lives.
That's right, exactly. And
Exactly,
like I said, and because
so-
men, we're driven, we're supposed to be doing that. We're supposed to be the controllers, so to speak.
Yeah.
That has an impact. A
And
mental
title has
health,
been stripped.
yeah, a mental impact in such a way, like I said, and like I said before, we know that the statistics stated that there's been a rise in domestic violence.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And that is an indicator for me
Yes, yeah.
of how many men are depressed.
Exactly. And not acknowledging or admitting it.
Yeah.
Or maybe don't even know.
They don't know.
But in
They
this
don't
instance, you are stating the causes
They
here,
don't
and you're
know.
talking about the impact,
Yeah.
so people can begin to identify with some of the things we've mentioned here.
Yeah.
That would be brilliant.
Yeah.
So, shall we come a little bit to your story now?
My story.
Let's delve a little bit into your story.
You know?
I know that you were born here,
Yes, I was.
and then you went to live a significant period of your youth in Jamaica,
Yeah.
and then. Did you come back here, or did you then travel to Canada?
No, I came
Where
back
do you
here.
want to start?
I grew up in Jamaica. I spent most of my life in Jamaica, and Jamaica's home for me because when I came out, I still don't know here.
You don't remember, okay.
Yeah, I don't remember here at all.
Yeah.
And so Jamaica has always been my home. Jamaica is my home.
Yes.
And I came back a young man. I came back as a young man, and eventually, and it's interesting moving from that kind of environment to this one. And even then, I probably because it was a culture shock. And even looking back now, I probably could have gone into a place of depression.
Then-
I didn't even know it.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Because it's completely new.
Yes.
Completely new, and then dealing with all the isms that went with it in terms of institutionalized stuff. Because I remember the first job that I got was in the civil service. First formal job, because I used to work in 7-Eleven before. That was
Right,
the first
okay.
one, yeah. The first 9 to 5 that I got was in the civil service, and I remember after the first year I was promoted. I started as an admin assistant, and then became an admin officer.
Right.
And after the first year, I said, yes, man. All right. I said, promotion come quick.
Promotion.
Yeah, exactly. And then I got to admin officer and couldn't move.
Yeah.
And then I started to realize about the system.
Yes, exactly.
So a period of time when I got educated, went to university and all of that, and qualified and all that kind of stuff. And I had my experiences going through that time, and then I ended up in Canada in 2003. Ended up in Canada, and that's when the journey really got interesting.
No, because this is when your entrepreneurial spirit really came forth, wasn't it?
It is.
You were in a new land.
Yeah.
You were looking to, set yourself up in business, and to really begin to sort of utilize all of your, your skill sets at this point. So tell us what happened.
You know what's interesting? All the jobs that I did, because I worked throughout the public service. I did you name it. I worked in charities, I worked in voluntary, I worked in housing association, I worked in local authority, right across.
Right. Okay.
And the majority of the time, I was always doing something on the side. And I mean, that got me in trouble once or twice. Telling the truth. You were
a true entrepreneur.
Yeah, I was. Back in the time, they can't use companies and stuff. But anyway, so I got in trouble a couple of times. So I didn't realize then that how entrepreneurial I was. Maybe I was from before, but I didn't recognize it.
Yes, right.
And then, heading to Canada, and I hadn't thought of going to Canada because it was a team of us, a number of us that were going to go, me and a couple of other friends. And we're going to go, and this was just at the cusp of when ringtones and mobile phones were starting to come in. I said, we can go to a completely new market because it wasn't ready yet. You know what I mean? Like the UK and Europe were good in terms of what they were doing. So anyway, what happened was, we went, but I was the only one who was able to get in. Another friend of mine didn't come up, and another one of them couldn't get in because of his heritage.
All right, okay.
And he was Pakistani, and they weren't allowing Pakistanis in at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was able to get in. So I got in, and then it so happened I said, you know what, all right. And I just realized I could get a line of credit. Man, I went crazy. I got a line of credit, probably about 100,000 Canadian dollars. But I knew what I was going to do with it in terms of investing in businesses and stuff like that, which is exactly what I did. And then I met another friend of mine who used to live here in the UK. As a matter of fact, he used to live, when I came here, I went to Tottenham. He used to live in Tottenham, but he had migrated to Canada. And it so happened that, I lived down the road from him years after, and we met up in Canada. And we met through his wife then, because his wife was a flight attendant.
So they were very supportive of you.
Very supportive. And so we ended up being business partners, we invested in property, and then I went off and even though I had a property business going on, I then went off and met another brother. Diversified into lingerie.
Yes, lingerie.
Yeah, lingerie. Brazilian lingerie. Yeah.
Nice.
Our store was called Lady Lace. Yeah.
Lady Lace.
Yeah. Yeah. It was called Lady Lace. And
Buildings for Lady Lace.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So I had a number of interests going on at the time. And I put a lot of money in there. Like I said, virtually all the money I got, I put into the businesses. Yeah. And then the partner that I set up the lingerie and import-export business with, in the end, I found out that he wasn't really as kosher or good as in terms of business acumen that I thought he was.
Yes.
And I was inspired by going to the personal development courses, the T.R. Beckers and Jack Canfield. So all of that, was all part of my action,
your
just
training.
To do. Yeah, just to do.
Right.
And he in the end, what happened was businesses didn't really get off the ground, especially the property business was fine, but especially the part of the lingerie business and the import-export business, that didn't get off the ground, and a lot of money was pumped in. I went to other people to pump in money.
Right.
And so when it crashed now, and then obviously, the financial burden started to come.
Instability,
And then my friend who had supported me was also involved, and then I had responsibility to him and banks, and so it all got on top of me.
Yes.
It all got on top of me, and
and with that family support, you were quite isolated.
Yes, I was.
in Canada.
I was. I had my cousin. I was living at her house.
Yes.
But you're right. I didn't have a close family time in that regard, and it was, and then it was only, like I said, when the cars started to come in and the creditors started after me and all that kind of stuff. It really got on top of me, and because I didn't know how to manage it. I couldn't manage it. And it got on top of me, and I just went into a particular space,
And this is when you kind of was faced with your demons, your nemesis at this point.
Yeah.
Because you were trapped.
Yeah.
You weren't sure how to cope, how to deal with it, and then the impact was now emotional.
Yes, it was.
Where you were, at times, I read the part, like I said to you earlier when we were speaking, where you were stood in front of Trafalgar, and you just
Niagara.
let rip. Niagara, sorry, listen to me. Trafalgar, Niagara Falls. And you just let go.
Yeah, that was, and the thing is, when you're in that space, you don't realize the impact it has on other people. And I remember my ex came to visit me once, and she was from here, and she came to visit me, and it was interesting how that whole, because there was a lot of hiding, I had a particle facade, but there was a lot of hiding. I wasn't exposing the truth, So, and the truth, that you can't hide the truth. The truth always comes out.
Yes.
Any which way, no matter how long, the truth will always come out. Always comes out.
Yeah.
So, we decided to go to Niagara Falls to spend a weekend and stuff. And along the way, it was tense, really tense between us, because I was not exposing my true self, and she was picking up on that.
Yes, on something.
Yeah, and the probing, and then there was more hiding. There's more retreating. Internally.
Yes.
And so when we got to Niagara now, and it was just uncomfortable and tense, between us, and then it so happened that we went for a walk by Niagara Falls, and it was whilst at the falls, and I've obviously never been to Niagara Falls before, and it was in that time when I'd been at Niagara Falls that I realized how small I was.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
How small I was, and she was there with me, and I was trying to let her understand that smallness, and that's how the tears came,
Yeah.
Because the power of the falls.
Overwhelmed.
Yeah, the power of the falls.
Crying at you.
Yeah, and that's what it felt like. The power of the falls was really. It was like you're in the presence of nature, in the presence of the Creator, and this is mighty.
Yes.
So why are you feeling so small, And that was what came.
Wow.
And,
that was really profound.
Yes, it was.
To read it,
That was the first. That was the first spiritual episode I've had. That was the first one, and there's a number of them I had. You know, it's almost like you get signs along the way. You know, and that was one.
The power of
sign.
God through nature.
Yeah, so there was one particular sign that at that time, but I didn't recognize it for what it was at the time. Because, like I said, there was a lot of hiding, a lot of just not wanting to confront what was taking place.
Yeah.
And she felt that, you know, and like I said, but then she, said, all right, here we're going to go to. She invited me to go to Africa, and so we came back here, and we organized ourselves to head out to Africa,
to Ghana,
and that's when more spiritual episodes happen.
Exactly. You know? Tell us a little bit about one of the profound moments, certainly one which I read about, when you'd gone down into the dungeons. Talk to us about that, where you were.
Well, again, prior to that though,
okay. Yeah, go ahead.
On the way over, because she came back here, it's all right, we're going to meet up here and head out to Africa. And like I said, I was hiding, and there was a lot of hiding, a lot of, like I said, no substance. And I remember being on a plane, and the episode I have on a plane, she beside me, she was sleeping.
Oh, right, with the glass.
Yeah.
That was hilarious.
so what happened was
embarrassing.
Was it embarrassing? So what happened was, so we're coming into land.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Coming into land.
Yes.
And
the
flight attendant coming by, picking up, she said,
glasses.
A glass, and my girl hadn't finished hers. So the attendant asked me, she finished, and I said, yes, she's finished. So I was close to the attendant, take her, I think it was orange juice at the time, and it was half, she had drank half, and she left half, and the flight attendant left, and went along the way. So anyway, we're coming to land, putting up the trays and everything. So my girl wakes up, and she says,
where's my glass?
Where's my, And I said, boy, the flight attendant took it. right. So anyway, so the flight attendants are coming back, and she says to the flight attendant, why did you take my drink? The flight attendant said, because your boyfriend said yes. And I said, if I could have jumped onto the plane, if I could have jumped onto the plane, I'd have jumped onto the plane.
You're fast.
And all I could have said was, boy, I told her to
take your drink. And you think, why did I do that?
But like I said, but those are the little things.
Telltale signs.
Exactly, of why I was hiding.
Again, trying to hide.
Yeah, I was hiding, and there was no reason to hide.
Not acknowledging,
so there was no reason to hide, and so we came into land, and looking back now, I can laugh, but at the time, there was no reason for it.
And what was the point?
Yeah, exactly.
What was the point?
There was no reason to hide.
None.
Right?
And it caused such embarrassment.
So like I said, but there was just a result of where I was and who I was at the time in terms of hiding myself.
Yes.
Not just being open and being able to say what needs to be said, right? So we came into land and everything, and we booked into a local hotel. Yes. And spent some time around town, around Accra. And she said, all right, let's go down to the enslavement fort. I said, okay. I said, obviously, the first thing I did when I landed was kiss the ground, because...
Yeah, you did. You knelt down and kissed the ground.
I kissed the ground because I had returned to motherland. Yes. I always wanted to go to Africa. That's the first time.
Wonderful.
And knowing that this is where my ancestors came from.
Yes, your ancestors, yeah.
So went down, we...
Acknowledging the ancestors.
Yeah, man, we had to acknowledge them, And so, went on to Cape Coast, and that was a profound moment. That was the second spiritual moment I had in my lifetime.
Yes.
And you're right, when we were going around the fort and seeing the rooms and so on and so forth, you don't understand the magnitude of it until you go into the dungeon. So when we went down into the dungeon, and it was dark. It was dark, it was like a bulb, and the guide is telling us, and the ground is so smooth, that thing is so smooth, it's unbelievable, and then when the guy is telling us about the watermark, where the mark is on the wall, where where the rainwater comes in, or the affluence and everything else, that's where the mark. I remember, we're talking about how much 100 years later.
Maybe even urine.
Everything you can think of, sweat, everything.
Oh wow!
Right, and we're in a room. Like I said, obviously it wasn't many of us, but we're in a room, and we're trying to imagine hundreds of people packed into this room. Oh. And so that for me was profound. But what was even more profound was when we're coming back out of the dungeon, and I remember there was a door that was locked beside the main doorway. And I said to the guide, I said, why is this door locked? We're seeing the tour of the entire fort. Why is this door locked? And I cracked the door, because even though it's padlocked, you could ease the door open. And the stench that hit me, I said to myself, wow. And
What was that?
I said to the guy, why is this? And he said, because of what's in the walls in terms of blood, effluence, stench,
defecation, all sorts.
everything that's in the walls.
In the walls.
In the walls. They were unable to clean it. At that time when I went, I don't know if they've done it now, but they were unable to clean that room to get rid of the stench.
So could you imagine people are in there?
That's what I'm
Hundreds
saying.
of people unable to sit standing chest to chest.
Not only that, how many hundreds of years later that the stench is still in there. So that was for me like, wow.
And at some point, I know you then thought about how you were feeling.
Yeah.
Overwhelmed.
Yeah. And
Escapism, hiding.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
How then? Did you make any comparison?
I did, because then that was when I went down and I came back out, then I realized, when you go in front of the ancestors, you can't be anything but yourself. You know what I mean? You can't hide.
Can't pretend.
You can't. No, you can't. You can't hide. And I was naked, and I don't mean naked in terms of
I know what
physical.
you mean.
I was naked
Spiritually.
I was naked.
Yes,
I was naked in front of the ancestors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's when I realized.
Look what we've been through.
Yeah, exactly. And
Who
that's
are
when I
you?
realized. And that's when I realized. I said, well, there's no comparison to what I'm going through to what they went through. And I said, my depression. Can you imagine how depressed they were?
And your depression is so important. Honestly, what you went through is so important to acknowledge.
Yeah.
So can you imagine how this situation compounds on top of that?
Yeah.
And we carrying that through.
We're carrying that through
as a peoples.
Yeah, to this day. And that's when I realized. That's when I realized that. That's when, as a matter of fact, that's when the spiritual seed was planted, if you want to call it. You know, in the religion, they talk about being reborn in Christianity, and it's exactly when I was being reborn. I didn't realize it.
Reborn. Give us, expound a little bit.
Because I had to. When in Christianity they talk about being reborn, it's like if you have to go back and you're under the water and the new mindset. You know what I mean? The spiritual wash clean and all that kind of stuff. It's exactly the same thing what happened to me. But it's not in a religious context.
Humbling experience, right?
Not a religious context for me. Yeah. You know what I mean? That was my being reborn.
Spirit.
And that's when the seed was planted. So I came away from there and I was blown away. I was literally blown away. And then I started to reflect and to question about purpose in life, my journey, all that kind of stuff, my interactions with others and everything else. And then it was only when one night we went to a reggae concert on Labadi Beach. This is the third spiritual moment I had. And we're on the beach and I remember, I was just on the beach and I'm looking out and I'm saying, it was a moonlit, it was very nice, beautiful night, beautiful and warm night, because obviously Ghana. And the water, I remember the water coming in at my ankles, and I will never forget this. And I'm standing on the beach and I'm crying to the ancestors. I'm crying, I'm bawling, I'm saying, boy, ancestors, for everything that you've been through, and I'm here, and I'm fortunate to be back, and I'm glad and everything else. And I said, what you want me to do in life? And I will never forget. I stood up by the water's edge and the water started coming at my knees.
Wow.
The water started coming at my knees and I knew that was their answer to me. And I said, wow. And I tell you, I cried. I cried. Yeah. When I hear thinking about it now, it was those are the moments that really started me on the path of understanding who I was as an African Caribbean man, understanding my role, my purpose, understanding.
And what was your role in your purpose? What did you define that to be?
It came. Funny enough, it came later on. It's because it came later on when I was having a spiritual bath back in Canada.
Yes.
And during that bath, it's like an sister said, what is it that you've done that people enjoy? And I said, it's poetry. You know what I mean? Because I had written, like I
Writing.
said to you, I had written poems from the 90s prior
Yeah.
to that, you know?
Yeah.
And it's true, the poems that I had shared.
Yes.
The first of the poems that I did was in the civil service newsletter, and it was well received. I ended up doing personalized poems for people
Right, okay.
as a way of a gift for a loved one or whoever.
I've done that actually, yeah.
Yes, and so
Wonderful
that's that.
gift.
So that's where that
Wonderful
they all came back and said, "What is that you've done that other people enjoyed?"
Yeah.
And it was a poetry first. That's what came. It said poetry, and then from that,
Yeah.
everything else
The
transpired.
writing.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
And this is your gifting, you feel now.
yeah.
To
Completely.
give to others.
Yeah, completely.
Wow.
Completely.
Wow. I could go on to other bits, but I think it's more apt now to just have you talk to us about your 8 steps.
Right.
So please, I'm going to give you the stage now,
Yeah.
and you talk to us about your 8 steps to health and well-being.
All right. So throughout my experiences and throughout my journey, and like I said, being able to become vulnerable, to be emotive, to be able to express, you know. I think one of the things is to talk. That's a main one.
Yes.
It's the ability to talk.
Yes, that's the first.
And funny enough, even when I was going through what I was going through, I was talking, you know. I even though I may have seen I was talking it's like madman, you know, talking to yourself.
You don't necessarily always feel released.
Exactly.
Right.
But
But
that's
you're
the thing.
dark.
Yeah, and the answers were coming, but I wasn't listening, I wasn't hearing. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I was talking, I was saying what needed to be said, but I wasn't aware of I wasn't listening, I wasn't hearing, I wasn't seeing what answers were. You know what I mean?
Okay, that's interesting.
Yes, it is.
Okay,
It is.
okay.
It is.
Viewers,
Yeah, it
to
is.
talk,
It is.
but listen.
Yeah, listen.
To
'Cause
the answers coming back at you.
signs will always
that
be
quiet
there.
voice.
Yeah, always. Whichever
Yes.
way it's going to come, it's going to come.
Yes. So
The most
talking is
important
the
thing
first.
I've also learned is reflection.
Right. Is this the second?
It is. I'm just
You
going
can take
random.
any order.
Yeah, I'm going
Yeah.
random. And the reason why I say reflection is that we don't take time to stop and reflect.
We don't. Always spinning.
Yeah.
What's
Always
the
on
next,
the
what's
go.
the next move? What's the next move?
Always on the move.
Yes,
And, you know,
always on
whether
the
we have
move.
children.
Preoccupied.
Yeah, exactly. Preoccupied.
life.
Yeah. So we don't take the time to stop.
Yes, stop.
And be
and-
still.
Yes. Hey, be still was another.
Yeah.
Be still was another
Be
step.
still. You know, and during the time of being still, you'll hear the answer.
Yes, yes.
Hear the voice.
You're so right.
Oh, you'll see
Reflection,
it.
okay.
Yeah, you know, you'll see it.
No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
you know, so-
and people don't realize how important reflection is.
Yeah, man.
There is so much emphasis in this world, in this consumer society, in this A-lister society we live in, to just perform and
Yeah,
produce.
Yeah. Yeah.
Reflection is so important. That think tank time.
Yeah, and you
Crucial.
see the results of that because, for example, like you said, and what you touched on earlier, is that people that are driven to suicide. You know, a lot of the time people say, "Boy, they didn't realize that the person was in that, you know
Was
what I
in
mean?
that place.
Yeah, they didn't know because the person didn't talk. Or, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? They didn't see nothing off, quote unquote.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So having the time to talk, to reflect, very important.
still.
To be still.
To write.
Yeah, I was going to come to that. To write.
Tell us.
It's also because I remember, and this is interesting, long before I knew what my true purpose was. I used to do a lot of creative writing workshops.
Okay.
And I did a workshop down in Hackney with some young people, right? And I remember this. And there was one young girl who came in, and I put up an exercise for all the young people to do. I think they were about 13, 14, 15 years old. And I said, okay, write on this particular word. And the word I had put up was love. I said, write anything, write what it means to you, as an exercise to get them to write. And I remember everyone was engaged except this one black girl. And she was flipping through a magazine. So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, whilst I went in the class, at the workshop the session, and all the kids doing. I said, so anyway, when we went through what they did, shared some very good writing, and I said to the young lady, why didn't you write anything? Because I'm not going to force her to write.
Yeah.
And she said, well, because when someone says they love you, they don't really mean it.
Wow.
Exactly.
Hurt people, hurt people.
Yeah, and that's what, and what you
Wow.
just said is what I said. I said, wow. I said this to myself, wow. I said, okay. So, I said, I said, she's written before, and she said, I've written before, but I have a journal, and I tear it up. Yeah.
Angry too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I said,
Wow.
wow. I said, you know what? I can't remember her name now. I said, listen to me. I said, write. I said, that's right. I said, that's right. I said, and keep a journal, but don't tear it up.
Don't tear it up.
Don't tear it up, because you'll be able to reflect
Later
on where you've been later on in your life. Right? And she took that, and I think she took it. And you know the reason why she took it? The following year, I was able to run again another class, workshop on the hand. They asked me back.
Okay.
And she was there, and I said, wow, you returned. Everyone else is new, you know. She's the only one who returned.
Yeah. She saw your name.
Yeah. And she saw my name.
History revisited.
Yeah. And she said, and I said, you're back. And she said, yeah, because I came up because of you, Kwame. I said, oh, okay. I said, that's nice. I said, that's nice. I said, that's nice.
Feedback time.
Yeah, and she said, she's writing a journal and she liked it. And would you believe, right? During the session, there's a black boy now who wasn't engaging. And you know what happened?
She noticed it.
Noticed and helped him. Yeah, she noticed and helped him.
Yeah, she knew the journey.
Yeah, and I said to myself,
wow. She turned mentor now.
Yeah. So like I said, so there's things that
Excellent.
have happened that signposted along the way in terms of my purpose, and that's how the whole writing thing came about. But I said to anyone, to write, because it enables you to express, to get out what's there. If you're writing about somebody else, they don't have to see it, but it's for you to tell the pain that you're going through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Then you exercised patience.
Yes.
With this young lady, which is another one of your 8 steps.
Yes, it is. I'm not going to give all the 8 tonight, though, you know.
Well, no, but don't give them all tonight.
But yeah, patience, and patience with yourself.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And like I said, there's some people who are in a particular space, because they haven't allowed themselves to be patient, and they've allowed other things to go on and to push them in a particular direction, in a particular way, then unfortunately they'll do something which they would not normally do, you know? So patience with yourself is important. It's so important. And I guess that comes from loving yourself first, as they would say.
Viewers,
you know?
can you see how this is a manual, a working, practical manual, which you need to go through, because we don't have enough time tonight to do it. So just in concluding, Kwame, what is happening next for you? We have about 5 minutes
5 minutes left. Oh gosh, man, this is like an hour, another hour talking. But anyway, a lot of writing, a lot of more works to come out, and like we were talking before, I've written across a number of genres, and I continue to write. My next pieces of work are basically fiction work, and novels and novelists.
And a poetry book.
And the poetry.
Yes.
I've got poetry. The poetry books. And then I haven't written a poetry book in a while. I've got 3 poetry books actually. 3.
Which I'd love to invite you back, if you don't mind coming
I'll
back
come
to talk
back.
to us about your poetry. It's a completely different genre from what you've written about today.
But the first, funny enough, but there's a connection, because the first poetry book was compiled when I was in Canada, whilst I was going through what I was going through.
Wow.
So that's where the connection is.
So we'll see a progression there.
Exactly. You see,
excellent.
so that's where the connection is. So the first poetry book is called Our Eternal Legacy. And that is profound in itself, in that was the starting of the actual productions of the works to this day.
Yes,
actually.
including
My
Date with Depression.
Yeah.
Come back. You have to come back and
I will
tell
come
us.
back.
You definitely.
come back.
I know you're involved in so many different projects as well. We've spoken about alternative projects. Reacting, producing. You're involved in so many different projects, Kwame. Script writing. You're doing so many, and like I said, you're still doing the ghost writing.
Yeah.
So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
You know, you are now expressing your gift.
Yes, I am.
And
I'm
I
grateful.
thank you for bringing your gifts here to us today, talking to us about depression, hopefully helping our readers and listeners out there.
Yeah. And if they want to get in contact with me,
tell them where to contact you.
I don't have a website at the moment, but the book itself is online. It's on Amazon and Lulu.com. So you can find it there. You can find me at, if you want to email me, it's Kwame, Kwame, MA, McPherson, McPherson, @gmail.com. I'm on Facebook as Kwame McPherson, Arthur Kwame McPherson, and on Twitter as Kwame MA. I'm on Instagram as Kwame McPherson. So you can find me. So yeah, my social media footprint is there. You know, people can find it if they wish to.
Kwame,
thank you.
I thank you so much for coming today and sharing your gifts
for the
with
opportunity.
us.
I've enjoyed it.
Audience, listeners, viewers, good evening and good night from us here on the Live Book Show. Good night.
Good night.
Night.